And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Tywanah, who has had 3 near-death experiences, which we're going to talk about and more. Tywanah, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me today.
Tywanah, we are excited to have you, and if you don't mind, let's just start with your first one. Go from there.
Absolutely. My first NDE was in 2010. I had been feeling under the weather, and it was funny because my mom passed in 1999, yet I could smell her scent very strongly in my house. She was a heavy smoker, so I could smell cigarette smoke. Um, but didn't think anything of it. I thought I was fine. I was on the phone with a friend. She calls my daughter. She's like, "Get your mom to the hospital right now." Because apparently our conversation, I was very jumbled, even though in my mind it was a normal conversation. And I was standing in the kitchen doing dishes. So we get to the hospital and nurses and doctors start flying around. They take blood work, they get me in the back because I fainted. And they told my daughter, had I fallen asleep at home, I wouldn't have made it. Or had we waited another 12 hours, I would not have made it. I had full renal failure and was put on the transplant list.
You get to the hospital, they start treating you, and then what happens?
I hear all the shuffling around me, nurses, doctors, trays, both arms are out for IVs. They're really trying to get me to be stable. And my eldest daughter is sitting to the right of me in a chair. And I remember like getting this really high pitch ringing in my ear, but the higher the ringing got, the further away the sounds around me got. So I remember like feeling like I'm slipping away. I knew I was. And I grabbed my daughter's hand as like a last I love you kind of thing. She was 18 at the time. And so the ringing is loud, the sounds are getting further away, and all of a sudden I'm in this void. Complete darkness. Peace like I have never felt before. And I'm just, moving through this void, in awe of what is and what is not. Because there's nothing there. It's complete blackness, but it's peace. It's not it's not frightening or anything. It's peace. And so I remember this, energy kind of pushing me forward. And I get to a certain point and I'm like, oh my God, I still have 2 young children. I was a single mom. And it was almost like energetically, I did this about face and started running back, if that makes any type of sense. Because I kept thinking, oh my God, my 2 youngest children. One was 12, one was 10. And finally, there's like a boom, I'm back in my body. There's, got IVs in both arms, the chaos ensues again, and I start fighting for my life, which was interesting. The doctor, he was quite funny. He, I wouldn't set up dialysis for discharge. I told him, no, I'm not setting up dialysis for discharge. And he thought I had lost it. So he put me on antidepressants for 3 weeks. And they removed my gallbladder because they found an infection there. And when the nurse is waking me up out of anesthesia, I thought I heard your kidneys are working, but you're under anesthesia, you're coming out, you think you hear anything. And so a couple of hours later, I'm in my room and the doctor comes in and he is pale as a ghost. And I'm like, doctor, what's wrong? And he said, your kidneys are operating at 100%. I have never seen this before. I just had a knowing.
What was the cause of the kidney failure in the first place?
They still cannot pinpoint it from blood work or anything like that. My mom passed from renal failure. So it does run in my family, but they could never put a direct cause on it.
Do you think it was your higher self telling you that your kidneys are working now?
I believe it was. I believe it was.
So
I believe she wouldn't let me give up.
after this happened, I don't know
Mhm.
what your religious beliefs were, but do you feel like you had some sort of spiritually transformative experience, or do you think, I don't know what that was?
No, I know it was a very spiritually transformative experience. I was a Christianity back then. Um, so, of course, at the time, I'm attributing it to God because that's what Christianity teaches, but you hit the nail on the head. It was my higher self telling me that I was gonna be fine.
When you were in the void, did you make the connection that, oh, okay, I must be dead?
Yes, I did.
Were there any other beings there?
Not where I was, except for the energy that was pulling me forward.
And that's interesting that you describe it as an energy. So
Yes.
something was pulling you deeper, perhaps even to the other side, further,
It
or another realm.
definitely was. It definitely was, and it wasn't anything scary or frightening. It was an uplifting and positive, comforting type of being or energy.
It's interesting that you had to make the effort to come back because many times experiencers, at the point that they remember family, they're automatically back.
Yeah. But I've lived in survival mode my whole life, so to feel that peace, that calm, where there's no chaos, I don't have to make decisions, nobody's depending on me. It was very different. And at first I wanted to just bask in it because I had never felt that before. So yeah, it was quite a transformation. Quite. It definitely left its print on all of us.
What changes did you make in your life after that?
I started moving more away from Christianity despite the fact that I was still in it, because that was when I knew for myself, for my own beliefs, that there was no heaven or hell as it's described, in the scriptures that we have access to now. Um, that was when I knew, and I lost my fear of transitioning after that.
All right, let's fast forward to your next NDE.
It is 2015, and I'm walking out of my bedroom. We lived across the street from the high school, and I could hear marching band practice start. You hear the drums. We lived right across the street, our subdivision. And so I knew one child was in marching band, one was in color guard. So they should have been on the field together. And I remember I'm walking out of my bedroom and I hear the garage door go up, and my daughter comes flying in. And I'm like, oh, did you forget your water jug or your shorts or something? And she's like, Mom, get in the car. And so I'm like, what's wrong? Did your sister faint on the field or whatever? She's like, Mom, just get in the car. And I had the car keys in my hand, and she snatches them from me and throws me into the passenger side. And I'm like, what is going, like, did your sister get hurt? And she's like, Mom, just chill. So she had never driven more than a mile. We get to the end of our road, um, to get onto the main road, and I start having a grand mal seizure. She thought it was a stroke. Um, So she said that when I woke up out of the first seizure, I turned and looked at her and said, are you crazy? Your grandmother is sitting right behind you talking to you, and you're not, saying hello. And then I went into another seizure. So she said she knew then that it wasn't a stroke. After I came out of it. I don't remember saying that to her, but after that, she knew it wasn't a stroke. So I had 3 grand mal seizures on the way to the hospital. Then I had 2, and as they were ushering me in, they had to sedate me for a couple of days, to get them to stop. But she said she just had a knowing that something was seriously wrong. She just knew something was wrong. So, yes, we went to the hospital and found out I have epilepsy.
During any of the seizures, did you have another experience in the void or go somewhere else?
When I can't pinpoint whether it was during a seizure or if it was while I was sedated. But in that time frame, I remember seeing my mother, and she said, no, it's not time yet. So I know she pushed me back. Um, she was kind of like in this doorway and wouldn't let me step over the threshold of the door. And as a psychic, I can tell you, she says it's because she knew I wouldn't have come back that time. And my kids were still in high school. They still had 1 year left, one had 2 years left. Um, so yes, I remember the doorway and her telling me it's not time. You got to go back. She wouldn't even let me see the void.
What age did your mother look?
She looked healthy, like she was in her 30s or 40s. She didn't look like mom who passed. She looked like healthy mom. She had some weight on her. She just looked healthy. She looked good. So 30s or 40s.
Did she appear solid or kind of translucent ghost-like?
She always appears solid. My mother's a Leo, so she's a little bold and fiery. So she always appears solid.
Now, after your second experience, where did you see your spiritual beliefs transform
I walked away from Christianity
completely?
altogether. Yes. Yes.
All right. Well,
It just didn't suit me.
you mentioned that you are psychic.
Yes.
Did that ability start after your first or second NDE?
No, I've always had psychic abilities. I just kind of shoved them to the side because of society and, religion and beliefs and people. Um, but it started to creep out of the box then, if it makes sense. The box that I had shoved it away in the back of my mind, it started to creep out and I started having more visions and hearing things, that everybody else couldn't hear or whatever. Um, so I do believe my three NDEs have heightened my psychic awareness.
Do you think
Definitely.
do you think you've been psychic since birth?
I have been. I was 2 years old. My mother said she was in the kitchen cooking, and back then in New York City, the kitchens had doors. It wasn't all open concept like it is now. And she said she heard me giggling, and I was crawling in the at 2 years old. I'm like crawling and running around the living room, and I'm saying, "Pop, pop, you can't catch me." And then the phone rings, and she found out my grandfather passed. So I've always had these abilities.
All right, let's move now to your third NDE.
Third and final, I was in a very toxic and abusive relationship, but wasn't aware of it. I wasn't aware that it was toxic and abusive because it wasn't physical. And I had come to DC to help my sister bury my brother-in-law. He passed away suddenly. And on my flight back, everything in my gut said, go to my house, go to my house. Like my body was screaming, just go to your house. But he was expecting me at his house. I couldn't deal with an argument that night, or at least I thought. And he picked me up from the airport in Atlanta. And so I get in the car and I'm talking and I feel the air gets cold. And I'm like, oh God, it's going to be a long night. I said something wrong. So he's arguing when we get home. At one point, I just get up, walk away, and go to bed. And because I'm just numb at this point. The next morning I get up, he starts the argument again. I walk over and I swallow a whole bottle of sleeping pills, followed by coffee and vinegar so they would melt. And I walked out of the house and I went and laid in the woods. And my daughter tried to call me and I'm not answering. She looks at my location. I'm in the woods. So she calls my ex-boyfriend. Why is mom in the woods? And he's like, I'm out looking for her. She went crazy or whatever. No, I just felt worthless and like I was nothing to no one, and that everybody's life would be better if I were gone. And that experience was very transformative. My mother and my stepfather were at the edge of this forest. And we actually had a conversation because I'm trying to tell them, no, I want to go with you guys. I'm tired, I'm tired. And finally, my mother is just like, stop. This is the beginning of your purpose. And she takes her hands and pushes me back. And I'm back in my body in the hospital. And I remember thinking, I was like, wow, I couldn't even do that right. You know, in that hurt space, that's what I thought. And you know, I remember crying that night and saying to my mom, like, why didn't you just want me with you? Why didn't you just want me with you? I don't understand this. And she just kept saying, your purpose begins now. Your purpose begins now. That's all I kept hearing. So of course I had a hospital stay and things that had to follow behind that. Um, but that truly kicked off for where I am now. That was where my spiritual awakening really began.
So, what is your purpose?
I am here to help guide others that have been hurt through incest and domestic violence. I have experienced both. I am here to be a voice for those who are hurting, who have been through bad experiences. I'm here to be a voice for those who, you know, feel worthless, or I'm here to empower. Um, and as a woman, where I know my purpose lies is guiding women through very traumatic situations, because I've had to do all the healing work for all the trauma that I've had in my life. Um, so I know my purpose now, and I don't want to go anywhere. Now I want to finish the way I'm supposed to. Now I love my life despite the fact that no one's in it, you know?
You've had three NDEs, which most people never even have one. I'm sure
Mhm.
you've thought about that. And have you come to any conclusion why you had three?
I have not come to a complete conclusion. I know that my manifestation number is always 3 and my confirmation number is always 3. Um, sorry, she just said it was to confirm my purpose. My apologies. My mother stays on my right
Oh,
side.
that's okay. That's great. I'm glad she's here. Do you think that this purpose was planned pre birth?
I know it was. I know it was. So I don't hate any experience I've had. I don't hate any people, you know, who may have intentionally or unintentionally hurt me. Now I don't resent anything. I know that everything I have been through and anything that I will go through is directly related to my purpose. So I no longer ask, why is this happening to me? I ask, what is this teaching me? And how can I alchemize it into something bigger?
Has the memories of all of these NDEs faded over time?
No, they're very real and very strong. I lost part of my memory with the epilepsy that was induced by a car accident. So they are very real.
I feel like your daughter is a living guardian angel for you.
She was.
Do you think
I definitely, my daughter, I know, was assigned to me as a guardian angel, despite the fact that we're not in communication today. But for that time, she was.
if you don't mind sharing, why aren't you guys communicating?
Absolutely. My kids were hurt by that last attempt because in their 20-something-year-old minds, I did it for a man. They do not understand that I have felt worthless my whole life, that, you know, it was just, it was a snowball. I just felt worthless and purposeless, and I had felt like that my whole life. So they don't understand it was, you know, it was coming, whether he was in my life or not, it was coming. So they've asked for some space, and I give them space as grown women. And I respect them. I mean, it takes a lot to stand up to your parents. It does. So I think my girls are very brave for what they've had to do. Um, it forced me into a faster healing track so that, you know, if they do consider reconciliation, they have healed mom now. And they don't know what healed mom looks like. This is healed mom. This is mom who can take accountability for her actions.
How did you heal yourself from those years of not feeling, worthy and not having self-value?
I jumped in the pool with both feet. Of course, I had mandated therapy after an attempt on my life, and I went to that therapy, and I saw a counselor for probably a year and a half after, And I got to a point where I felt like talk therapy was just, it's just that, it's just talk therapy. We keep rehashing the same things and I don't feel like I'm, digging deep. So I started looking into the metaphysical healing modalities, RTT hypnotherapy, different types of meditations, different types of readings, Akashic readings, and all of that. And I started engaging in them. And with each one, I felt more empowered. So I'm like, yes, this is home. This is where I'm supposed to be. And through all of those modalities, through my mother, who's been, who has more than made up for not protecting me as a little girl, because this woman protects me and guides me fiercely now. And she came through in my RTT hypnotherapy session, and she said, and all of that's recorded. She says, I didn't get to finish unpassing my gifts to you. And in the session, it's like I feel her energetically place her hands on my shoulders and they get really hot. And I can feel her transference of her gifts to me. So I'm even more of a heightened psychic than she is, or she was. Um, but my mother has definitely been a driving force in my healing. She's helped, on these nights where I have felt alone and destitute. She's here. She's introduced me to my ancestral team, people I never knew existed. Um, so I used a lot of those different metaphysical healing modalities, and the icing on the cake for me was my Akashic reading.
Hmm.
Once once the keepers of the tablets tell you, well done, there's not a human form that can stop you from believing in yourself. Not one. And that's what I heard. Well done. You've cleared your family's karma.
Interesting. What was the karma?
They were not clear in that aspect of it, but in the reading, I never pronounce it right. Thoth says, well done, you have cleared your family's karma. And once the keepers of the Akashics say, well done, humans thought of you no longer matter. That was the most empowering thing I had ever done, and I've been unstoppable since.
What's popular on YouTube now are videos about narcissists. Would you
Yes,
say that this guy that you were with, the last guy, was a narcissist?
100%. He ticks off every box for covert narcissism.
Would you say that you were an empath at the same
I
time?
am an empath and have always been.
Why do those two different personality types seem to hook up?
Because empaths, we want to fix people. It's like with an empath, you're standing here, but we can see the version of you that's behind there. We can see that better version of you. So we hold on to this better version of the other person, versus looking at the person for who they actually are. And I think that's why those two wind up in a lot of tangles.
Do you think the empaths probably need to know that they can't fix anybody? Only people can fix themselves.
Yes, yes, empaths do need to know that 100%. And I learned that. So I see people for who they are now.
If you had a friend that was suffering over the loss of a loved one,
Hmm.
what kind of advice would you give?
Knowing what I know now about the other side, they're not lost. You just can't see them with our two eyes. You need to look through your third eye. They're 9 out of 10 times they're beside you. You just have to look for the signs. There are signs everywhere.
Well, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you
Hmm.
open to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's the best way to contact you?
blackbutterflygoddess.com or Black Butterfly Goddess on any social media platform.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yes, I do.
What kind of content are you posting there?
Right now, I'm just posting the podcasts that I've appeared on. I haven't started like making my own videos because I've been so busy being on everyone else's podcast lately. But I do intend on starting a series on covert narcissism and learning the traits. In fact, I have a document on my website about that now. And I'll be starting to talk about incest and the survivors that are out here, how to help them heal from that type of trauma.
What else are you working on that you want people to know about?
I am working on a mentorship program. It's called Intuitive Illumination, leading you from the darkness into the light. I have a very amazing friend who's a certified coach. I'm not certified yet, which is why I refer to myself as a mentor, who's helping me with that. I'm designing a couple of different journals with prompts for people who are in crisis, including suicide. Um, I'm appearing on, I can't even tell you how many podcasts at this point, but I use my voice every chance I get so that survivors know that they're not alone. Anybody experiencing trauma, period, knows that they're not alone. Um, my birthday twin and I are we're meeting with someone regarding how to put our podcast together. So at some point in the very near future, probably 3 to 4 months, we will be starting our own podcast.
Great. The type of hypnotherapy that you received is RTT, right?
Yes.
What is that
Yes.
type? I haven't heard of that one.
I forgot what the acronym means.
I'm used to QHHT.
Real-time text, rapid transformational therapy. And it's where they, it's you have to be certified to do it. And it's where they put you in a hypnotic state, and they take you back through each bad experience in your life. They walk you backwards to the point of where you're signing your soul contract. And they ask you, with each one, they they ask you to hug that version and let them know we're okay now. So with each step you go backwards, they're telling you to let this person, this version of you know that we're okay now. So that's what she did. She took me backwards all the way to where I had just signed my soul contract, and asked me why I chose my mother. And I said, because she's pretty and she doesn't feel like anyone loves her. And that was the truth. My mother didn't feel loved in her life. After my papa passed, she felt very lost. So I think I was mom's guardian angel too.
Tywanah, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Absolutely. Please know, everybody, you are not alone. No matter how destitute your situation may seem, you are far from alone, and you are worth all of the abundance that the universe holds. Don't let anyone tear you down or take that from you. Stand tall and know that you have a purpose. We all have purpose.
It's okay. That's okay. I do that all the time.
It was supposed to vibrate.
That's all right. It's all right. Tywanah, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.